Welcome back. You're watching The Globe. We go to the US now, where the US Justice Department has released a heavily redacted affidavit that provides some insights into the justification of an FBI search on the private residence of former President Donald Trump. Earlier, releases of both the search warrant and the inventory receipt of items removed from the property show that FBI agents left with 11 sets of classified documents from Mar-a-Lago, including some marked top secret that should have only have been viewed in special secure government facilities. The affidavit or sworn statement was ordered released by a judge in an acknowledgment of the huge public interest following the unprecedented nature of the search operation of a former president's home. Sherwin Braspeace has been following the story for us from New York.
In a separate memo released ahead of the affidavit, the Justice Department explained that the heavy redactions were done to protect 5 categories of information, namely witness details in order to protect their safety, the investigation roadmap that could compromise the process underway and potentially lead to the destruction of evidence, keeping the grand jury process under seal to protect their deliberations, the safety of law enforcement personnel, and finally, privacy interests to contain the risks to persons who might be accused but could later be exonerated. The 38-page document confirms that the government is conducting a criminal investigation concerning the improper removal and storage of classified information in unauthorized spaces, as well as the unlawful concealment or removal of government records after a referral from the National Archives. It says the probe is seeking to determine how the documents with classified markings and records were removed from the White House and came to be stored at Mar-a-Lago. The affidavit states that there is probable cause to believe that evidence of obstruction was to be found at the premises. The FBI and the Justice Department are investigating possible violations under 3 federal laws, including the Espionage Act, which deals with gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information, a statute addressing the concealment, mutilation, or removal of records. Additionally, the destruction, alteration, or falsification of records. The affidavit further states that based on this investigation, the FBI believes that the storage room and other spaces at Mar-a-Lago where the documents were kept are not currently authorized locations for the storage of classified information or national defense information. The document concludes that based on the foregoing facts and circumstances, the investigating FBI agents submitted that probable cause existed to believe that evidence, contraband, fruits of crime or other items illegally possessed in violation of the aforementioned statutes would be found at the premises. For his part, former President Donald Trump maintains, without evidence, that he had a standing order that documents removed from the Oval Office to his White House residence were deemed to be declassified the moment he removed them. Sherwin Braspeace, SABC News, New York.
Former US Congressman John Leboutillier is on Zoom to share some of his thoughts on this story that continues to unfold. John, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Just how serious of a problem does Donald Trump have over these documents?
Well, I think he has a huge problem. Now, whether they're going to prosecute him, Peter, I don't know. Because, I'm not a lawyer. I've been watching TV all afternoon here in New York, trying to figure out what the consensus is. Some very experienced, big-time lawyers are saying that Trump is as certain to be indicted for this. And a couple others are a little more hesitant to say that. Trump is acting today and yesterday as if he feels he's going to be indicted, and he's lashing out against the Justice Department. He calls it the sleaze and the agents who did the search. And he sounds like a cornered rat, frankly, the way he's acting. So, but we'll have to see. Clearly, this is a very grave situation. The stuff they found is lists apparently of human agents, our agents overseas, and how to find them. And what's he doing with that in a beach club in Florida?
So the crime is that these documents actually don't belong to him, even if it was his notes. Whilst he was president, this belongs to the country. And he was warned by lawyers that he couldn't take them away. He's trying to present this idea that he could declassify them, but that doesn't still give him title, does it?
Well, first of all, no. And the law is very clear. It doesn't have to be declassified if it's sensitive national security information. And he didn't declassify them, so they are classified. He never should have had these things in his possession once he was no longer president. He apparently has repeatedly refused to turn them back. You've read the quote when he was asked directly by his own lawyers to give these papers back. He said, "They're not theirs, they're mine." Well, they're not his, and he doesn't seem to understand that. The government wasn't his. The White House wasn't his. The generals weren't my generals. And the national security secrets of the United States are not his. They're the country's.
So why was this affidavit released, albeit redacted in its presentation?
Well, as you know, since the court-ordered search 2 weeks ago, Monday, the country's been in a turmoil over until the last few days, which I'll get to. And they've wanted, and the news organizations, not Trump, but the news organizations went to this judge and said, "We want to see the affidavit." And that's why the judge felt he had to act to at least let something out to give the American people through the media some idea of the justification for the court-ordered search. I'm not calling it a raid. That's not what it was. It was a court-ordered search. A change has occurred, though, in the last few days. The pro-Trump people have calmed down a little bit as they've begun to see that this thing is way more serious than they thought. The FBI did not exceed its bounds. This was all proper, and Trump is the one who did something bad. And I think even his own advisors and supporters are realizing this. It's why he can't find a lawyer. No one wants to try to defend the guy because he won't listen to the lawyer. He won't pay the lawyer. He won't do what the lawyer recommends. It's a real mess. I think Trump is putting himself in a corner where he may face charges pretty soon.
And the Republican Party, I mean, we've seen some elections lost in recent weeks. Dick Cheney's daughter losing her seat, all because they were anti-Trump. Has sentiment within the party shifted as a result of this? Are people now a little bit more nervous to support Trump, given what he's done?
Well, I don't think it's changed much at all. I think these people that love Trump are just totally locked in on him. I've come to the point, I'm contradicting myself from a year ago. I don't think they'll ever leave Trump. This MAGA world will never leave Trump. If Trump doesn't run again, then they're free to go support somebody else. But it's his advisors, people who advise him politically, for instance, they're the ones who are realizing this is big trouble. And they aren't out defending him as much in the last few days. And I think after today, there'll be even fewer of them publicly defending Trump.
When the FBI went into Mar-a-Lago, they knew exactly where to go. They weren't rummaging and hoping. They knew where everything was stashed. And so that pointed to perhaps inside knowledge. Does that suggest that someone very close to Donald Trump has been cooperating with the federal authorities?
I would say yes, and I would say it's more than one person. I would say they have several people in Mar-a-Lago, staff, either political staff or household staff, club staff, who've been cooperating, because you're right. They knew that day, that Monday, 2.5 weeks ago, when they went in there on the court-ordered search, they knew where to look, including, apparently, some of these documents were ultimately found, Peter, in Trump's bedroom. What are top secret documents doing lying around some guy's bedroom where anybody can walk in, they can get a temporary job as a maid and actually be a spy for China or Russia and go in there? I mean, this is nutty what he did.
And this wasn't a surprise, though, because they'd been asking him for these documents for months.
Right. There's a whole trail of back and forth where the State Department, the archives, and the FBI were asking Trump and his lawyers to give all this stuff back. And the Trump people even had a signed letter and a statement from one of Trump's lawyers, Christina Bobb is her name. She signed this document, gave it to the feds saying, everything's been returned. Well, that's a total fabrication. That was in June. Here they go in early August and find boxes of stuff. So there is a trail of Trump stealing this stuff, keeping this stuff, and lying about keeping it. And I think that, as usual, will be what may trip him up, the lying.
And I suppose there are people around him now who are scared to be caught up in this web, being seen as aiding and abetting a federal crime.
Well, I'm sure that's true. And I think there was a day, the Friday after the Monday of the search. So I think the search was on the 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12. So on Friday the 12th of August, the Washington Post ran a front page story that some of the documents that Trump had down there were involving nuclear programs and were extremely top secret. We don't know what nuclear programs, ours, Russia, China, who knows? And that changed the perception right away that day, that this was more serious than people thought. And every day since, there's been fewer Republicans calling out the FBI as if the FBI did something wrong. Now, there still are some of these nuts who call the FBI the Gestapo, which is ridiculous. They are doing their job. This is a court-ordered search. That's two of our branches of government. The judiciary ordering the search, the Department of Justice from the executive branch asking to do the search. This is not the Gestapo, and these stupid idiot MAGA people ought to shut up.
All right. And perhaps finally, what happens now? The public now have knowledge, some knowledge of what's been going on, and it looks as if wrongdoing has been shown. What happens now to Donald Trump?
Well, I'm guessing for a while, nothing. These cases don't move fast. The federal government, when they prosecute someone, they are extremely diligent and detail-oriented and will not charge him till they have every single thing locked down in the indictment. Every witness, every statement, every document, everything covered. So when they indict him, especially him, because he is a former president, and we've never done this, we've never gone after one of our former presidents as a potential criminal. So this is groundbreaking in America, and I think it'll be several months on that case, maybe sooner on the Georgia election fraud case. Trump has so many cases against him going on. As a friend of mine put it, Trump is an avalanche of criminality.
Wow. And that's where we'll leave it, John. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Good to see you.
All right, that's John Leboutillier, who's a former US Congressman. He was with the Republican Party there, giving us his take on the travails that former President Donald Trump is facing, where he took top classified documents to his house in an unsecure environment. and the government is just saying that's not good enough.